It is funny how when you buy a new piece of complex technology, you always get a manual.
Oh, yeah, like a high-end digital camera or something.
Right. Or honestly, even just a moderately fancy microwave these days. It comes with this incredibly dense user manual.
A thick booklet detailing literally every single button.
Exactly. Every potential error code, every calibration setting. You get a troubleshooting guide that tells you exactly what to do when the system crashes.
Because it gives you a sense of control. If X happens, you do Y.
Yeah, the machine is predictable.
Right. And your response to it is completely scripted.
Predictable. But then you look at the human operating system.
Which is way more complicated than a microwave.
Just a bit. You get dropped into this world, and the absolute most powerful software running the entire machine, your emotions, comes with zero documentation.
None at all.
No troubleshooting guide, no index, just good luck, try not to crash the system today.
It really is the ultimate design flaw, isn't it?
It really is.
I mean, we are handed the keys to this incredibly high-performance vehicle, but we aren't given a map, let alone a driver's education course on how to steer it when the weather gets bad.
And let's be honest, most of the time, the weather is bad.
Oh, definitely. Constant storms.
Well, that missing manual is exactly why we are here today. So welcome to this custom deep dive, especially for you listening right now. We know you are a learner, someone looking for those aha moments without all the fluff.
And we have got a really great one today.
We really do. We are looking at a highly concentrated, brilliantly concise summary of Patrick King's book, Control Your Emotions.
It's a fantastic text.
The mission today is to extract the practical blueprint hidden within these brief summary notes. We are going to figure out how to shift from being constantly at the mercy of impulsive knee-jerk reactions to cultivating actual emotional intelligence.
Inner calm and, better self-control.
Exactly. And the source material we are working from today is essentially a distillation of a distillation.
Right, but do not let the brevity fool you. It is incredibly dense with architectural blueprints for the human mind.
Yeah, it packs a punch.
It does. And I think the most striking element of this entire text is how it treats the concept of emotional control itself.
How so?
Well, so often we look at someone who is incredibly calm under pressure and we just assume they are built that way.
Oh, like they won the genetic lottery for Zen.
Exactly. We treat emotional regulation as an innate personality trait, like eye color or height.
Like you either have it or you don't.
Right. But the architecture of this summary completely dismantles that idea. It treats emotional control not as a trait, but as a discipline.
A discipline.
It is a practice. That implies that no matter where you are starting from, whether you are quick to anger or easily overwhelmed by anxiety, this is a skill.
A skill that can be acquired, honed, and mastered.
Exactly.
I love that. But if it is a skill, we need to understand the underlying machinery before we can start fixing it, right?
We do. We have to look under the hood.
So the text lays down a massive foundation right away. It states that our emotions influence our thoughts, our decisions, and our daily behavior.
Which sounds obvious, but the implications are huge.
Right. And it also explicitly notes that mastering these emotions reduces stress, anxiety, anger, and negativity.
That is the causal chain of human reality laid out in a single sentence.
Emotion, thought, decision, behavior.
Yes. And it is fascinating because we usually get the order of operations entirely backwards in our own lives.
What do you mean?
Well, we desperately want to believe that we are highly rational creatures.
Sure, we like to think we're logical.
We tell ourselves that we encounter a situation, we generate a logical thought about it, we make a rational decision based on that thought, and then we execute a behavior.
And the emotion is just kind of along for the ride.
Exactly. Maybe an emotion is tagging along in the background like a shadow.
We like to think logic has its hands at 10 and 2 on the steering wheel. Like, if we think of our mind as a car, our rational thought is the driver, carefully navigating the road.
But the text reverses that completely. The emotion is not the shadow. It is the invisible director of the entire play.
The invisible director.
Yeah. Emotions are not just isolated, passive feelings that wash over us while we go about our logical business. They are the active, aggressive filters through which our thoughts are formed in the first place.
Wow. So if my baseline emotion in a given moment is anxiety, the thought itself is fundamentally compromised before I even consciously process it.
Completely compromised. Every single thought that bubbles up into your conscious mind is going to be tinted with that anxiety.
That is terrifying.
It is. And because the thought is compromised, the decision you make based on that thought is skewed. And ultimately, that dictates your daily behavior.
That explains so much, actually.
The text specifically links unregulated emotions to a quadrant of misery, basically. Stress, anxiety, anger, and negativity.
The big four.
Yeah. And if you trace any of those four states backward, you won't find a logical flaw in a spreadsheet or a scheduling error. You will find an unregulated emotion pulling the strings.
So going back to that car analogy,
Yeah, let's look at the car.
what this text is actually suggesting is that our emotions are holding the steering wheel. They are the ones driving.
Exactly.
Meanwhile, our conscious, rational thoughts are just sitting in the passenger seat, confidently rationalizing why we are turning left, completely unaware that they didn't even make the turn,
Yes. The passenger is just narrating the journey,
believing they are in charge.
while the invisible driver is slamming the gas and the brakes.
That invisible driver is the reason we so often find ourselves reacting in ways that confuse us later.
Oh, totally. You snap at a colleague, and an hour later you think, why did I do that? That wasn't logical.
Right, because it wasn't logical, because logic wasn't driving. Emotion was.
Exactly.
I have a hard time buying that completely, though.
Really? Why?
Well, if my emotions are pulling the strings on every single thought, decision, and behavior, aren't we kind of fighting a losing battle?
I see where you're going.
I mean, life is inherently stressful. Work is demanding, relationships have friction, the news cycle is terrifying.
It's a lot.
If the environment is constantly throwing stressful stimuli at us, and our emotions are the first things to react, aren't we just doomed to feel stressed out and angry all the time?
That is a very common reaction.
How can we possibly stop a natural reaction to a stressful world?
And that is the exact trap a lot of people fall into when they hear the phrase emotional control.
They think it means.
They assume it means becoming a robot. They think the goal is to suppress or obliterate feelings so that when a stressful event happens, you feel absolutely nothing.
Like a sociopath.
Right. But if we look closely at the summary, the text does not tell us to eliminate our emotions.
Oh, it doesn't.
No. The goal isn't to stop feeling stress or anger. It is to understand their influence so we can mitigate the resulting anxiety and negativity.
So it isn't about pretending the weather isn't bad.
Not at all.
It is about acknowledging the storm but knowing how to steer into the skid.
That's a perfect way to put it. It is about moving from being a passive victim of the emotion to an active manager of it.
Okay, I like that. Active manager.
Because you cannot stop the world from being stressful. You cannot stop your boss from handing you a last-minute assignment on a Friday afternoon.
As much as we'd like to.
Right. The initial spark of frustration or stress is going to happen. But you can stop that stress from hijacking the steering wheel and driving you off a cliff into an entire weekend of ruined, anxious behavior.
Okay, but how exactly? If the spark is inevitable, how do we stop the fire from burning the house down?
The source material gets incredibly explicit here.
What does it say?
It says we need to recognize emotional triggers and identify what causes emotional reactions.
Okay, so we have to go backward.
Yes. This requires going as far upstream as possible in that causal chain we just discussed.
Right to the source.
The text places a massive emphasis on the cause. You have to identify what causes the reaction, and this requires a profound level of self-awareness.
Which the text highlights as a core requirement.
It sounds simple, but it is incredibly difficult.
Because you cannot control what you cannot see.
Exactly.
You have to become a diagnostician of your own mind.
Yeah, and notice the specific phrasing the text uses. Emotional reactions.
Reactions.
That word reaction is critical. It implies an automatic, unthinking, reflexive process. A reaction is something that happens to you.
Like a physical reflex.
Exactly. Think of a reflex test at the doctor's office. The little rubber hammer hits your knee and your leg kicks.
Right. Think about it.
You didn't weigh the pros and cons of kicking your leg. You didn't make a conscious decision.
Yeah, it just happened.
The stimulus bypassed your conscious decision-making entirely, and that is exactly what an emotional trigger does to your brain.
But, identifying that trigger in hindsight is incredibly easy.
Oh, sure, after the fact.
It is so easy to sit on your couch at 9 o'clock at night replaying an argument you had at work.
We all do that.
And you think, oh yeah, when Dave questioned my spreadsheet in front of the team, that triggered my insecurity about my competence, which made me snap at him.
Hindsight is 20/20.
Exactly. Catching that trigger in the wild, though, catching it in the exact millisecond, Dave opens his mouth. That feels almost impossible.
It is the hardest part of the entire process because your brain is wired to act on the reflex instantly to protect you from perceived danger.
It thinks Dave is a tiger.
Basically, yes. And that is why the text leans so heavily on the concept of self-awareness as a practice.
So how do we practice catching it?
To catch it in the wild, you have to start logging the data of your own life. If you know that you are consistently experiencing spikes of stress or anger, you have to work backward like an investigator mapping a crime scene.
Oh, I like that. A crime scene.
What was happening right before the anger spiked? What time of day was it? Who were you talking to?
What specific words were used?
Yes. Was your heart rate elevating before you even realized you were mad? You were looking for the pattern.
You are basically installing security cameras in your own brain to watch your own reflexive kicks.
That's a great way to think about it, because once you know that Dave questioning your work in public is the rubber hammer, you can anticipate the kick.
You see the hammer coming.
You can start to see the hammer swinging through the air before it even makes contact with your knee.
Okay, let's say we do that. We build up that self-awareness. We start mapping our triggers. We see Dave walking over to our desk, holding a printed copy of our spreadsheet, and we know the hammer is about to swing.
Right, the threat is imminent.
Recognizing the trigger is only half the battle, though. Knowing I am about to get angry doesn't magically stop the anger from flooding my system.
The biology is still happening.
The adrenaline is there.
Yeah.
So what is the actual intervention the text provides to stop the reaction?
The intervention provided by the source material is deeply specific and surprisingly mechanical.
Mechanical.
Yes. The text instructs readers to do 3 things. Pause before reacting, respond calmly instead of impulsively, and use breathing, reflection, and patience during stressful moments.
The pause.
The pause.
It sounds so deceptively simple, but it feels like the fulcrum of the entire philosophy.
It is the fulcrum. And the vital linguistic distinction the text makes here is contrasting reacting with responding.
Oh, reacting versus responding.
We just talked about how reacting is impulsive. It is the knee-jerk reflex. Responding, on the other hand, is deliberate. It requires calmness.
So a reaction is automatic, but a response is a choice.
Exactly. A reaction is automatic, a response is a choice, and the bridge between the two is the pause.
The pause is the bridge.
The mechanism that allows you to cross from a state of reaction to a state of response is that forced pause.
And how do we force it?
The text gives us a tactical toolkit to force that pause into existence. Breathing, reflection, and patience.
Words we hear all the time.
In a lot of self-help literature, those words are just vague buzzwords. But in the context of this summary, they are the mechanical gears you have to manually shift to stop the automatic process.
Let me try out another analogy here.
Go for it.
If we go back to the car, it is like hitting the clutch in a manual transmission.
Oh, I like this.
When you press the clutch pedal down, you physically disconnect the engine from the wheels. The engine might still be revving incredibly loudly.
Your heart rate might be spiking.
Exactly. The adrenaline might be surging. The anger at Dave might be boiling. But because the clutch is pressed in, that explosive power isn't transferring to the wheels.
You aren't moving forward.
You aren't accelerating into a catastrophic collision.
Yeah.
So breathing and patience act as that mental clutch.
They disconnect the engine of the emotional trigger from the wheels of your behavior.
Yes. It gives you a split second to decide what gear you want to shift into instead of just blindly accelerating.
And that is crucial because the emotion, the engine revving, is still happening.
Right. You're still mad at Dave.
The text isn't telling you to turn the engine off. You aren't suppressing the biological reality of the anger. You are just refusing to let it drive the car while it is redlining.
Which is such a relief.
This is where the text's mention of mindfulness comes into play.
Another buzzword.
Right, but mindfulness in this highly practical application is just the act of keeping your foot firmly on that clutch.
Just holding it down.
It is the active, conscious presence required to stretch that tiny microscopic millisecond between a trigger and a reaction and expand it into a measurable moment of reflection.
If you were listening to this right now, maybe on your commute or sitting at your desk, think about how this plays out in real life. You get that passive-aggressive email.
Oh, we all know that feeling.
Your chest gets tight, your breathing gets shallow, your fingers instantly go to the keyboard to fire back a defensive, scathing reply.
That instinct is the reaction.
Exactly. The text is telling you to literally take your hands off the keyboard, press the mental clutch, take a breath, force patience into that physical space.
You are actively widening the gap between stimulus and response.
And that gap is where your freedom lies.
Viktor Frankl famously talked about that space between stimulus and response being the locus of human freedom. That gap is where you regain control from the invisible driver.
But, the source material doesn't just leave us hanging in the gap.
No, it doesn't.
It doesn't just say take a deep breath, pause, and magically figure it out. It gives us a very specific, cognitive replacement strategy for what to do while we are paused.
Because once you have successfully paused the impulsive reaction, you are still sitting there with this revving engine of negative emotion in your head.
Yeah, Dave is still standing there with a spreadsheet.
You still have to process the trigger. What exactly are you supposed to do with your thoughts while your foot is on the clutch?
What does the text say?
The summary dictates that we must replace negative thinking patterns with balanced thoughts.
Replace negative thinking patterns with balanced thoughts. There are two huge concepts buried in that one sentence.
Yes, replacing negative thinking patterns and using balanced thoughts to do it.
Let's unpack the first one.
The first concept centers on the word patterns. The text specifically uses the word patterns, which reinforces the idea that negativity, chronic stress, and anxiety are habitual loops.
They are just random.
No, they are not one-off isolated cognitive events. If Dave critiques your spreadsheet, your brain doesn't usually invent a brand new, bespoke negative thought just for that occasion.
No, it plays the hits.
It defaults to a well-worn neural pathway, a pattern. Dave always undermines me. I am never respected at this company. I'm going to be passed over for the promotion. I might get fired.
Right. It goes 0 to 60.
It is a script that plays automatically because you've played it 1,000 times before.
It is like a deep scratch on a vinyl record.
Yeah.
Every time the needle drops anywhere near that scratch, it gets pulled into the same groove and plays the same awful song.
Exactly. The brain loves efficiency. It loves a script.
Even a bad one.
Especially a bad one if it thinks it's keeping you safe. And the second huge concept in that sentence, and this is perhaps the most vital nuance in the entire summary, is what the text tells us to replace that script with.
This is the part that blew my mind.
It does not say replace negative thoughts with positive thoughts. It explicitly uses the word balanced.
Wait, balanced, not positive.
Not positive.
That is a massive distinction. I mean, we are so conditioned by modern self-help culture to force a smile, find the silver lining, and project relentless optimism.
Good vibes only.
Right. But this text is actually giving us permission to just be objective.
It is a radical departure from toxic positivity.
Toxic positivity can be so exhausting.
And incredibly destructive. It can be delusional. If you are in a genuinely stressful, unfair, difficult situation, trying to force yourself to think, everything is awesome, Dave is actually my best friend, I love this intense pressure at my job, that is just a lie.
Your body knows you're lying.
Your nervous system knows it is a lie. Your brain will reject it, which creates massive cognitive dissonance, and that actually generates more internal friction and stress.
Toxic positivity is like trying to convince your body it's not freezing when you are standing in a blizzard in a t-shirt.
Oh, that's a perfect image.
Your nervous system knows you are lying, and you are shivering anyway. A balanced thought is putting on a heavy winter coat. It acknowledges the harsh reality of the cold, but actively manages it so you don't freeze.
Yes. A balanced thought is objective. It is realistic. It is grounding.
It strips away the fiction.
It strips away the catastrophic fiction and looks only at the facts.
So what is the balanced thought in the Dave scenario?
A balanced thought in the Dave scenario isn't Dave is wonderful and this is a great learning opportunity.
Because Dave might actually be a jerk.
Right. A balanced thought is Dave's communication style is abrupt and condescending, which is unpleasant. However, his critique of row 42 on the spreadsheet is mathematically correct. I need to fix the math.
It separates the math from your self-worth.
Exactly. This is an issue about data, not a referendum on my overall worth as a human being or an employee.
So if replacing a pattern requires active demolition, how do we construct that balanced thought in real time?
It takes work.
You aren't just ignoring the negative thought. You aren't just taking deep breaths until the negative thought gets bored and wanders away.
No, you have to engage with it.
You are actively, consciously swapping it out. You are arguing with your own automatic script, using the cold, hard logic of a balanced perspective.
It requires you to act as the defense attorney in the courtroom of your own mind.
Oh, I love that. The defense attorney.
When the prosecution, your ingrained negative thinking pattern, stands up and passionately argues, this is a disaster, Dave hates you, your career is ruined, you have to step up to the podium.
And say what?
You have to say, objection, let's look at the actual evidence. What are the facts? Let's find the balance here. You have to cross-examine your own panic.
That is such a powerful tool. If you're sitting at your desk right now and your chest gets tight over an interaction, what is the default script that automatically plays in your head?
What is your prosecution saying?
Right. Is it, I never have enough time to do anything right? Is it, nobody appreciates the sacrifices I make? Seeking balance instead of fake optimism takes so much pressure off your day.
It really
You
does.
don't have to be endlessly happy or grateful for the stress. You just have to be accurate.
It makes emotional regulation deeply accessible. It lowers the barrier to entry because truth is easier to hold on to than a forced smile.
But here's the catch.
There's always a catch.
Doing this once, hitting the clutch, taking a breath, acting as your own defense attorney, and finding a balanced thought is incredibly helpful in a single, isolated moment.
It might save your afternoon.
Exactly. But making it a permanent change to your operating system requires moving from an isolated event to a system of discipline.
Yes, consistency is key.
Pausing once when Dave critiques your spreadsheet is great, but doing it every single day with every minor annoyance and major crisis, that requires an immense amount of cognitive energy, unless you can somehow automate it.
It would be exhausting otherwise.
How does this summary suggest we turn that exhausting conscious effort into a reflex?
The text brings up building healthy habits and building resilience through discipline and emotional practice.
Resilience. That's a big word.
It is. But look closely at how the text positions the concept of resilience. In this summary, resilience is not framed as a fortress you are born with.
Not a personality trait.
No, it's positioned as a byproduct. It is the direct result of discipline and emotional practice.
We are circling all the way back to the core premise.
Exactly. Emotional intelligence is a muscle that must be conditioned.
But, how does one actually practice an emotion? The phrasing is so counterintuitive.
It sounds weird, doesn't it?
Yeah. You can practice playing the guitar. You can practice a tennis serve. But practicing an emotion sounds almost like an oxymoron.
Well, you don't practice the raw emotion itself. You practice the system around the emotion.
Oh, I see.
You practice the architecture of the response. You practice it by utilizing the exact steps we just discussed, identifying the trigger, applying the pause, holding the mental clutch, and constructing a balanced thought.
And you just do that over and over.
Every single time a minor, low-stakes trigger occurs.
So you use the small, mundane annoyances of daily life as a training ground.
Exactly. You build healthy habits through relentless repetition in low-stakes environments.
Like going to the gym.
Think about a gym. You don't walk into a gym on your very first day and try to deadlift 500 pounds.
You would destroy your back.
If you try, you will break your back. You start with the empty bar, you practice the form, the mechanics, the breathing.
And what is the empty bar in daily life?
If someone cuts you off in traffic, that is an empty bar. It is a low-stakes trigger. It is the perfect opportunity to practice the form.
So you feel the surge of annoyance when the car cuts you off. You hit the mental clutch, you take a breath, and you consciously replace the catastrophic pattern. That guy is a selfish monster who is actively trying to run me off the road and ruin my day, with the balanced thought.
Which would be,
That guy's probably running late, driving carelessly, and isn't thinking about me at all. I am safe. I can just slow down.
boom, perfect execution. And by doing that consistently with the minor annoyances, the traffic jams, the slow Wi-Fi, the spilled coffee, you are building and thickening those neural pathways.
You are conditioning the muscle.
You're conditioning the emotional muscle so that when a major life stressor hits,
The 500-pound deadlift.
exactly, a health scare, a massive financial loss, or a deep betrayal, the habit of pausing and balancing is already installed in your hardware.
Because if you can't hit the clutch when your Wi-Fi drops out during a streaming movie, there's absolutely no way you're going to be able to hit the clutch when you're facing a massive crisis that threatens your livelihood.
You won't have the muscle memory, you'll just react.
And that is precisely what the text means by building resilience through discipline.
Discipline gets a bad rap, I think.
People think discipline means punishment or restriction.
Right. But in this context, discipline is simply the commitment to repeating the healthy habit, even when you don't feel like it.
It is doing the reps when you are tired.
Over time, that conscious, draining effort of responding calmly transitions into an automatic default behavior. The response replaces the reaction.
The idea that calmness could become your automatic reflex instead of anger is an incredible promise.
It completely flips the script on how we experience the world.
In all of this hard work, all of this habit building and cognitive rewiring, it is all ultimately in service of the book's overarching philosophy regarding how we experience time and peace.
The text brings it all home with what I consider the ultimate paradigm shift.
The final piece of the puzzle.
The final takeaway from the source material is the directive to focus on long-term peace instead of short-term reactions.
Long-term peace instead of short-term reactions.
And that, the text claims, is the ultimate goal of developing emotional intelligence, inner calm, and better self-control.
This is where all the theory meets the reality of how we want to live our lives.
It is fundamentally an issue of emotional economics.
Emotional economics, I like that.
The text is exploring a profound dichotomy between cheap thrills and lasting wealth. A short-term reaction like snapping at your partner in anger, firing off that caustic email to Dave, or storming out of a room often feels incredibly good in the microsecond it
Oh,
happens.
it feels great. It offers a very cheap, immediate sense of relief or a hit of righteous vindication.
You feel powerful for a fraction of a second.
But that reaction completely bankrupts your long-term peace.
Completely bankrupts it.
It is the emotional equivalent of a massive sugar crash.
Exactly.
You get the candy bar of rage, you get the spike of feeling justified and loud, and then you spend the next 3 days dealing with the terrible fallout.
The apology.
Yeah, you have to apologize, you feel guilty, you lie awake at night analyzing the interaction, and you have to navigate a strained, awkward relationship going forward.
You traded hours, days, or even weeks of long-term peace for a 2-second hit of a short-term reaction.
It is a terrible investment strategy.
The text is urging us to recognize that bad trade before we make it. It frames inner calm and better self-control not as restrictive states where you are bottling up your true feelings and making yourself small.
Which is how a lot of people view self-control.
Right, but it frames them as deeply liberating states. When you have better self-control, you are no longer a victim of your own impulses.
You are no longer easily manipulated by your environment or by the careless people around you.
And you see that bankrupting of peace happen all the time when people let the invisible driver take the wheel. They burn down their own serenity because the reflex was too fast to catch.
But by identifying the trigger, taking the pause, breathing, and acting as the defense attorney to replace the negative pattern with a balanced thought,
You are literally refusing to make that bad trade.
you are trading a cheap, short-term reaction for incredibly valuable, long-term peace. You are taking your hands off the steering wheel of a crashing car and constantly mapping a route to inner calm.
It is a complete reclamation of your own autonomy. You are shifting from a highly reactive defensive existence to a deliberate, intentional existence.
You stop being a thermometer that just reacts to the temperature of the room.
And you become the thermostat that sets the temperature.
That is brilliant. This entire blueprint isn't just an abstract psychological theory. It is a highly practical, step-by-step user manual that we were never given.
It really is.
It is a completely customized workflow for your own mind, designed to keep you out of the weeds of anxiety and absolutely focused on actionable daily peace.
But like any manual, it only works if you actually open it.
Right, you have to apply the troubleshooting steps when the warning lights start flashing on your dashboard.
The knowledge alone isn't enough. The application is where the transformation happens.
So just to recap the journey we've been on today, we started by acknowledging the invisible, driving power of our emotions, how they tint our thoughts, skew our decisions, and dictate our behavior.
The invisible driver.
We unpack the necessity of radical self-awareness, learning to identify our specific triggers before they hijack the system by watching our own reflexes.
Watching the rubber hammer.
Then we explored the mechanical, life-saving power of the pause, hitting that mental clutch through breathing and patience.
Creating the gap.
We walked through the active demolition work of replacing habitual negative thinking patterns with grounded, objective, balanced thoughts, completely avoiding the destructive trap of toxic positivity.
Being the defense attorney.
And finally, we recognize that all of this is an ongoing discipline, an emotional practice aimed at securing long-term peace over cheap, short-term reactions.
It is a profound shift in perspective.
It really is.
And as we wrap up this deep dive, I want to leave a final thought for you to mull over, building directly on that idea of emotional control as an emotional practice.
Okay, let's hear it.
If we truly internalize the idea that emotional control is a discipline that requires practice and reps, rather than an inherent, unchangeable personality trait, how does that alter the way we view our own past?
Oh, wow.
Think about your past emotional missteps. The times you lost your temper, the times anxiety paralyzed you, the moments you look back on with deep regret or shame.
We all have a mental list of those.
Instead of seeing those impulsive reactions as permanent, fundamental flaws in your character, you can simply view them as moments where you lacked the proper training and habits.
You just hadn't read the manual yet.
Exactly. You didn't have the muscle. Which means total inner calm isn't some mystical state reserved for monks on a mountain.
It's accessible.
It is a biological capability completely within your grasp, starting with the very next time you feel a trigger, take a breath and choose to press the clutch.
That reframing changes everything. We aren't broken, we just haven't finished our reps yet. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive. Take those balanced thoughts into your day, keep practicing with the empty bar, and we will see you next time.